Hello and welcome to the Discover History YouTube channel, and today is St. Valentine's Day, or as most people call it, Valentine's Day. Now, if you saw our post on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram this morning, as well as wishing everyone a happy Valentine's Day, we also said look out for our video, our lockdown video in lockdown number 3, and the video today will be all about Valentine's Day. Now, what we're trying to do throughout lockdown is give you some entertaining and also informative and educational videos on a historical theme. And because lockdown sort of is coinciding with big things like Easter last year and Valentine's Day this year, we thought we'd give you a little introduction to the history of those celebrations. So if you look back through the videos, especially through social history, you will find a selection of videos on different celebrations as such, really. So tonight we're going to be talking about Valentine's Day and where it originates from and how it's become a celebration of love hearts. It's a celebration of chocolate, and obviously things like flowers and nice feasts or meals out, for example, which obviously during lockdown we won't be able to do. So how did it become what is today a very commercial thing? Now, you're probably thinking it's bound to be the Victorians, and I will tell you now in advance, it is the Victorians. The Victorians are the ones that actually made most festivals a commercial thing. If you think to Easter and especially Christmas, it's consumerism, it's commercialisation, which is what the Victorians are famed for. However, before we look at St. Valentine, and in particular Valentine's Day, we have to find where it originates from. And when it comes to Easter, we've got very pagan festivals like the Festival of Eostre, which starts Easter off. And when you look back at Christmas, for example, we can say that could be Saturnalia, which is the Roman festival, a pagan Roman festival, or even winter solstice prior to that in history. So where does it originate from? Well, the closest we'll ever get to Valentine's Day, or a festival of love, is probably in the Roman festival that took place in February. Now, to the Romans, February was a very important time of the year, mainly because it's often associated with two major things. One is purification. That's really down to the fact that we are, I wouldn't say running into spring, but we've had winter, midwinter, and therefore slowly the days are lengthening. And even now, if you look out the window, not in Worcester I would add, because it's absolutely pouring down here, but in some areas at 5 o'clock 2 weeks ago, it was dark. And I must say now at 5 o'clock, it is still just about daylight. So it's obviously looking to the fact that we're purifying our souls, ready for the spring, and then that will lead on to the nice long warm summers, and then up to harvesting, for example, August and September. So it's a time of purification of the body. But to go along with that, February is also the important time of fertility in the Roman calendar. So you can see why when we get Valentine's Day and what it all is today with our chocolates, hearts, cards, that sort of thing, you can see why the Roman festival that I'm going to be talking about is heavily connected with the two, really. So the Romans had a big festival that started around about the 12th, 13th or 14th of February. So it's part of this time of purification and fertility. And they actually gave it a name, Lupercalia. Now, for anyone that knows Latin, Luper is associated with the wolf. So where does the wolf come into this story? Now, for this, you will have to think back to a very ancient legend that goes back to the founding of Rome itself. And that is the story of Romulus and Remus. And the two of them ended up building separate towns, basically. And eventually one beat the other. And that's why we get the founding of Rome. And when you think of Romulus and Remus, you often think of the wolf. And the reason for that is because the legend has it that the two children were suckled by the wolf. So there we have the wolf there, and we have Romulus and Remus underneath. So you can see the importance of the wolf, and that's down to the fact that without the she-wolf's love, Romulus and Remus would have died. They would have starved on the mountainside, and therefore you wouldn't get the founding of Rome or the great Roman Empire. So we have a lot associated with the wolf, and that's why you get what is called the Festival of the Wolf, or the Fertility and Purification Festival of the Wolf, which is Lupercalia. So Lupercalia was an important Roman festival during that February time, and it meant a number of things. Obviously, there would have been going to the temple, and that would have meant, for example, praying to the gods, thanking them in a way for the founding of Rome, thanking the she-wolf for suckling Romulus and Remus. And then, very important, would have been leaving something, and that could be a small container with wine, it could mean money, and also tiny little cakes. There's a lot of cakes involved in most festivals in Roman times. When we say cakes, it's more like a small sacrificial biscuit, basically. But within the temples, and often within very public places in Rome itself, there was usually a Lupercalia sacrifice. And this would have meant that two people, generally dressed in goat skins, and there's a reason for the goat skins. If you think of farming folk years ago, especially in the early days of the founding of Rome, goats, the biggest enemy to goats and also sheep, were obviously the wolves that were wild. And remember, we had wolves in this country until relatively modern times, to be fair. So what would have happened is these people dressed in these goat skins would have brought forward a goat. Now we know it had to be a male goat, and we also hear in the writing that they sometimes sacrificed a male dog as well. So it was very common for the goat, but sometimes a dog as well, and it would be brought into the temple or into the middle of the square, and it would be sacrificed, usually with a bloodletting, so usually draining the blood out of the animal. So the sacrifice would take place, and would be chanting, a vast amount of music, including drums, wailing and that sort of thing. And then you would have had this very strange occurrence where the people dressed in the goat skin, who were now splattered with blood, and it was said that they often took the sacrificial knife and wiped it on the forehead, would have then ran through the crowds around the Palatine Hill, which is obviously where Rome started and where the cave was supposed to have been, where the wolf found Romulus and Remus. And they would have had in their hand goat skin in strips as well, so very much like a cat o' nine tails. And what they would have done with this goat skin is ran around the hill, swinging it around their heads, basically. Now the story has it, if that touched the hand of a woman, that woman would become pregnant in that year. So it was quite an important fertility thing, and obviously associated with the she-wolf that obviously enabled the founder of Rome to live, basically, way back in the myths and legends of long ago. And then by the evening, that would have also meant vast quantities of feasting, which in a way today involves a nice meal out and some chocolates, for example, and would have also been a time of great drinking, vast quantities of wine. And I bet you there are people today on Valentine's Day sat there having a meal and probably drinking a nice glass of wine. But the story doesn't end there, because there is a lot of links to do with this festival of fertility, the festival of love, and in the Roman period that continued right up to the 5th century with the fall of the Roman Empire. Now we have here also the goddess of love there, Venus, as a little Roman statue, and the reason for that is most households had a shrine, and they would have been brought out for this festival, and they would have even brought out, as I showed you a few moments ago, the she-wolf statue with the suckling Romulus and Remus, and these could be purchased relatively cheaply from a stall in the market square, or you would own a bronze one and it would be in your household to be brought out during this festival. But like I said, when we get to the 5th century and the collapse of the Roman Empire, it doesn't end there, because as time went by, they needed a new form of festival. And what you then get is the famous St. Valentine's festival. So who is St. Valentine and how is he linked with this whole story? Well, the story has it, Valentine, this man here, used to perform illegal marriages within the Roman army. Now, I say illegal marriages because at one point in the Roman army, it was actually illegal to get married. And the story has it that a man that gets married becomes a very weak and feeble person. In other words, marriage saps the energy out of the person, which is a dangerous thing when Roman men had to be, in many ways, in the Roman army for the protection of Rome and also the provinces within the Roman Empire. So it was seen as if a man gets married, he will be weakened. But it was said that Valentine, also a Roman, would often go around holding secret marriages outside the army camp, for example, in a glade, in a woodland down by the river and that sort of thing. So he's connected with love, which is also connected deep down with the Lupercalia festival of the 14th of February, which is obviously what we're celebrating now. And the interesting thing is with Valentine also is there is a legend that when he married people, he would often take a ring. Now, some people say it was his personal ring, and on that ring was actually be 2 cupids, and that's one of the reasons why we get cupids on cards and why cupids are often associated with this story as well. And he used to place the ring on this finger here, which is how people get married today. They have the ring on that finger. And there is also another legend associated with that, saying that the main vein to the heart, which is obviously where the love is, goes along this finger. And if someone, like a Roman soldier who was illegally married, went into combat and fought, if he had that finger severed completely off, it would mean the love would end. And that's why even today the ring is supposedly worn around that finger. Lots and lots of facts in history. Is it true? Well, actually, we know that isn't where the main vein is. But interestingly, it's a lovely story associated with this whole festival, this whole celebration that we take part in every year with our chocolates, with our flowers and with our cards. But the other interesting thing is the fact that Claudius found out about these illegal marriages, and even when Claudius spoke directly to Valentine, Valentine then went on to convert or try to convert Claudius. Claudius was in such a rage about it, and the legend has it that Valentine was put to death. He was executed, and then obviously with the birth of Christianity getting bigger and bigger by the 5th, 6th and 7th centuries, Valentine then becomes a saint, and that's why we call him Saint Valentine. Some people say his execution was on today's date, on Valentine's Day. Now, the other interesting story is the time that he was getting executed, he was held in prison just prior to his execution. And the sad thing is, the story says he was talking to the jailer, and the jailer had a daughter who was blind from birth, it was said. And Valentine asked to see the daughter. And by all accounts, when Valentine laid his hands on the daughter, amazingly, the next morning she could see. Now, Valentine did leave a note for his daughter, the jailer's daughter, and it was signed Valentino Tibi, which basically means your Valentine. And amazingly, by the 18th and 19th century, cards, especially in the Victorian period, often had the word your Valentine in it. Because I don't know about you, some people say you should never sign a card, a Valentine's card, with the name of the person giving it. It should usually be signed traditionally with from your Valentine, which is also associated, like I said, with the last few moments before his execution. But like I said, we have Lupercalia, which sort of evolves into St. Valentine's Day, which is often referred to now as just Valentine's Day. And it was a saint's day, so it was celebrated long ago. There would have been mass held for St. Valentine. There would have been a feast in some cases. But the interesting thing, when you get to the Victorian period, especially in the Victorian period, cards are starting to appear, Valentine's cards. And I will give you a little challenge. Go on the internet, go on Google, look at image search and look up Victorian Valentine's cards. There are some very, very strange ones. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave you with that teaser there. Have a little look through. There are some very odd ones, and there was even Valentine's cards in the Great War. Some were being made in the Second World War, a lot of homemade ones because of obviously mate doing men. And then really when you get to the 50s, definitely the 1960s, there's some very odd 1960s ones online that you can look at. It becomes the traditional thing that we know today. The flowers, the chocolates, they're all on a tick list. Flowers tick, chocolates tick, cards tick, sit down for a meal tick, have a drink tick. They're all the things that we now associate with Valentine's Day. But it's come a long way from Lupercalia and also the real story of Valentine. Interesting fact, Saint Valentine also is the patron saint of things like epilepsy, and Saint Valentine is also associated, or Valentine's Day is associated with lots of other things as well. You may have heard stories that I haven't told you, but these are the most common ones. And as we always say with these videos, it's designed to give you the enthusiasm to look a little bit further. So on that note, happy Saint Valentine's Day. Enjoy your meal, enjoy your wine, and we'll see you with another video tomorrow. Stay in, stay safe. See you soon. Bye bye.